Ladies and gentlemen, the Kids in the Room podcast. Kids in the Room podcast.
That's right. That's right.
Brought to you by Moo Faces TV.
Woo! All right. Hey guys, we've got Andrew, the comic book investor, on the show today. Andrew, what's going on? How you doing?
I'm doing great. I got no complaints.
Awesome. So, what have you been up to, man? How's your day going?
It's been busy. I had an interview this morning that I did, and then I conducted an interview for my second podcast. And then I watched some TV, Law and Order, got to catch up, SVU and Organized Crime. It's awesome, both those shows. And just ate some food, and here I am, and I'm enjoying my Saturday.
Awesome. So, what your specialty right now is what? Comic book investing, and what else?
So I am what is known as an alternative investor. So I'm a traditional investor, such as stocks and ETFs and mutual fund and index fund type of stuff. And then I also play in the alternative space in investing with a particular focus on comic books, as well as comic books like this and stuff like, since I don't break my laptop, this. And then I also deal with Pop Funkos. And so Pop Funkos are these like figurines that are maybe 4.5 inches, and some of them go for serious money. And I buy and sell stuff. I spec on stuff. I put money into books. And there's a lot of money to be made.
How much money is there to be made doing this stuff, man? This is interesting.
Right now, I am averaging per item I sell a 32% profit margin. So what I'm averaging, and that could range from anything. So typically, if I sell a book for $55, I'm actually pulling out about $21 in profit on it. So that means that I bought the book, and that means I paid for the book. So if the book was $25, I sold it for $55 after my eBay fees, shipping, handling, and any other fees that might pop up. I wind up pulling out $21. But when you're doing this in numbers of 30, 40, 50 books a month, all of a sudden you're pulling in, a good chunk of change. And then you take that money and you can do a bunch of other stuff, but it pays for the item. And then I get to take out a nice sort of distribution from my business. And this is sort of a side hustle, and it's another way just how to accelerate growth. And then I take that money and actually put it into the stock market.
What type
into
of
more dividend?
Okay.
What?
What type of
So
stocks?
I'm a big dividend investor, and so I'll put it into something like AT&T or a Gain or a Stag. And the reason why I put it into those stocks is that they return my capital for me. So AT&T has a 52 cents dividend per quarter per share, or $2.08 dividend per year. Gain, I think, has a 7 cents dividend per share every single month. And then Stag has a dividend, I think, of 12 cents a month. And so I just alternate, and then I'm obviously investing in a lot of other stuff, but it's kind of crazy because when you buy an item, so just to go back to this, I bought this for $20.
That's a great looking photo.
So this right now, yeah, it's an awesome photo. It's cool too. So right now, the book is going for $4 on eBay. So if I'm to sell this, and typically, normally this would actually cost $50 to get this thing done, but I got it sort of in a deal by the company that actually did this. They graded it for free, which makes it subjective versus a book like this, which is, this is subjective, this is objective, and this is much like graded baseball cards. And so all of a sudden what starts happening with comics in particular is that this is not an expensive book. But I have a book called Ultimate Fallout 4. Ultimate Fallout 4 is the first appearance of Miles Morales from Into the Spider-Verse. That book goes from anywhere from $600 to $1,000. And that was a $4 book when it came out. So when you want to talk about growth, there's books like that, and then you can go all the way up to the millions of dollars range in comic books right now. I know somebody who just actually, I think 2 weeks ago, sold a Superman Action 1 for $3.2 million.
Wow.
So, a lot of money in this stuff. And that book, I think, cost like 15 cents when it first came out, like 84 years ago. So you want to talk about an amazing rate of return going from 15 cents or like a quarter all the way up to $3.2 million. I mean, there's so much money to be made in this.
So wait, like how long ago did they buy it again?
The Action One is the first appearance of Superman. That came out in 1938/1939. So, and yeah, and the reason why it's valuable is because at that time nobody ever saved comics, nobody preserved comics, and they were just read, beat up, thrown into the trash, and this was an extremely high grade of a book. And so one of the reasons why it's very expensive is because I think it was like an 8.5 or a 9.0, which is really high for a book that's almost 90 years old that was not meant to survive.
Right.
And it just sold for $3.2 million because it's an amazing rare find. And it just goes to show you that who would have ever thought that a comic book could be worth that much money? But that's not like what I don't deal with that type of merchandise. I typically like buying a book very cheaply for 10, 20, 25 bucks and then selling it for 55, 60 bucks and then moving volume. So I like to move like 50 or 60 books a month at 55 or $60. And then you pull out a nice chunk of change and you take a healthy distribution, but you already paid for the item before you take out any distribution. And then I buy new items and I keep doing it and doing it and doing it. And my entire philosophy is to create more and more wealth for myself. And hopefully I'm going to be starting a family soon and I'll be able to provide wealth for them and also have nice things and have really cool cars. So I really like fast things that go boom.
All right. So is it that easy just to start a family? Like you can just go walk in the street and find one?
If you know how to impress the right girl, it should be.
Hilarious. Yeah, man. So you've been doing this for a while. You've been well, actually, how long have you been doing this? Sorry.
I've been doing this since I was a freshman in college. It's kind of a crazy story where I've been into comics since I was 12, buying and reading stuff, but I didn't get into selling until I was about 17, 18, 19, that era. I don't know the exact day, but it was in college and I wanted new comics because comics come out every Wednesday. And I was broke. I had no money in college because I'm a broke college kid. I have money for certain things, but not a lot. And I want new comics. So I said, oh man, I need some money. So what I did is that I went through my collection, picked out some books, went on eBay, saw it, so that they were going for way more than what I paid for. And then I just sold some, and then I had money. And then I did it the next month, and the next month, and the next month. And then obviously I got a job that summer, which helped to fuel more of my comic stuff. Kind of took a little bit of a break from selling. And then I came back just recently in probably the last 5 years or so, and I've been selling nonstop and moving things out and buying certain books and sort of cracking the code. And I've sort of cracked the code in a lot of ways on what to buy, how to buy it, where to buy things, what books to sort of seek out, what books to avoid. And just from experience of doing this for the last, 10 years on and off, and in the last five, a hell of a lot more extensively. And it's crazy. And I'm in expansion mode right now because I'm definitely moving a lot more merchandise right now and it's going well and it's awesome.
So when you say you're moving a lot more merchandise, what are we talking about? What kind of how much merchandise are we talking about?
I'm moving about 30 to 40 books a month.
At what rate?
Eh,
Average.
Typically 45 to 50 a piece.
It's not bad. And you've been doing this for 10 years.
I've been doing it for 10 years, but the last five have been very, very extensive. And I mean, my usual rate in the last, prior to this year was maybe like 30 bucks a month. Now it's getting up to 40, 50 because people have money right now. Obviously, people want things. Also, I've been buying a lot of merch for the last 5 years, and now I'm unloading a lot of that stuff because it had to mature. It's kind of like a stock sometimes has to mature before it reaches its full potential.
Mm-hmm.
And comics are no different because they're a commodity, in which that in many ways, these things are commodities. And that when you buy something like this book just came out like 3 weeks ago, this book isn't worth much money at the moment. In 3 years, this book could be worth triple what it is right now because of who did the cover. And if I get it graded, if I get it signed, that's going to affect things. If something interesting happens with Silk, the character from Marvel, that's going to affect the value. But at the same time, that book can go down
Mm-hmm.
just the same way. But I have an idea of what to buy, when to buy it. I'm taking a big risk on that because Spider-Man 60 Years is coming up. And so I think everything Spider-Man next year is going to be red hot like Star Wars is. And I think people are just going to buy anything Star Wars and Spider-Man and pay a premium for both of those projects. And so this book I bought for about $2.50. If I could get 750 out of it, it'll be a good rate of return. But then on books like that, my goal is to move a lot of them versus saying moving a big ticket item. And I sell big ticket items, so I sell books for like 200 bucks sometimes, and I paid maybe 50 for them. And so obviously that's where the average comes in, is that I've moved comic books for $200 and I moved comic books for 20 bucks. And so that's kind of where it gets very interesting, where I've done both sides of the equation. And so it's kind of crazy. And some books just obviously go for more money and some books go for less.
Right. That's pretty cool. So you've been doing this for a while. So how do you plan on retiring from this? Like what is a big win for you?
Oh man. You know what it is? I don't know if I ever want to retire because I love doing this and this isn't my day job. This is just a side hustle that just gives me cash. It just allows me to add more wealth. This is just a wealth building tool for me and I love doing it. And I actually want to expand actually into wholesale. And that's something that I'm going to be learning and figuring out in the next 6 months. So right now I'm just buying direct from, my comic shop or where I order online, my online comic shop, or from virtual sales or from live sales on Facebook. And I know what things are valued at, and I'm making good money and just by buying at retail prices. But if I could buy at wholesale, which is 50% off, and I could still sell it at above what I'm selling it for now, or even $5 cheaper, because that's where I kind of want to go. Because this is just a wealth building tool for me, and the more wealth I have, because all this money just allows me to add more into my stock portfolio, or it's going to allow me to make an additional mortgage payment whenever I have a house if I choose to do that, or it's going to allow me to have nicer things and buy something fun, or it's going to pay for my family's vacation type of thing. And that's what this is for me, but no new money, or very little new money, I should say. About $300 in new money is coming into my entire fund. And that's how I view this entire comic thing for me, is that this is almost like assets under a fund type of business that I'm running in the model I'm using, because as soon as I make a sale, I immediately pay for the book and then I take out the profits, and then I kick, instead of taking out the whole thing, I kick what that book cost was into a new book to replace it for merchandise, and then I repeat the process. And so basically very little new money's coming into it every year, just to sort of keep it growing a little bit, because sometimes, 1 month I might sell 60 books and the next month I might only sell 40. And so it's that type of thing that sometimes but it averages out to be 40 to 50 books a month.
How are
And
you
so I
selling
don't think I'm ever going to retire.
how are you selling 60 books? Like what ways or methods are you doing that? How are you distributing it?
Facebook is one way to do it. And then either people pay me by Cash App or PayPal. Another method is eBay, and eBay is very effective. And I don't sell international, but there's 350 million people in the United States. So there's plenty of people looking at things. Also, I happen to just have some of my buyers' information and personal information. And so I'll shoot people emails sometimes and say, hey, I got this book in. Are you interested? And so that's kind of how I sell, those three ways. And then every once in a while, somebody refers me saying, hey, I know this person is looking for this book. Do you have it? And I do the same for other people when I don't have a book. And so that's sort of the four methods. But yeah, usually Facebook Marketplace is really effective for this. And then Facebook groups and all sorts of stuff in that realm, because it's the world and it's a very, very small niche community. And so I love it.
How can somebody verify, that your comic book is actually legit?
Usually, so comic books have a bunch of cool stuff. So this is easier than a raw book. So this company is called CGC. This is a company that is a third party grader. The first thing that people should do with a graded comic is see that there's no cracks on this. So as you can see, there's no cracks on it. It doesn't look like it's opened. It's got all the seals of approval, and you'll know if this thing is open. You know, if this thing's open, you can remove the comic. Secondly, if you don't think it's a real book, this thing has a barcode on it. So this is registered in this company's database, and it's registered in a few other places databases. So this is actually a barcode, and I think you can scan the barcode as well as you have the numbers. Then there's also a bunch of other things on this where it just tells you who did it all, and it just looks authentic the way that is. So that's how you tell this, because this is a third party verification grading company that determines that this is a 9.8, and a 9.8 goes for a certain amount of money. Now, conversely, with a book like this, typically serial numbers. So this barcode, there's different comic book apps that you could scan it, and if it appears on it, that's one way how to tell it. Also, I'm not going to open it up, but it should say Marvel. It should have certain copyrights. It should say who invented Silk. It should say, when this book was done, the issue of it, and things like that. There should be an advertisement of a particular thing. I think it's like either AC/DC or Judas Priest or Queen is on the back of this book. That should be an indicator. I just don't want to open it up. And then also other things like this should be what it is. Also, this looks like Marvel's logo. If it looks sort of fake, it's going to be fake. And so that's kind of Marvel, DC, Image, any major company, it's going to look a certain way. This thing looks new. It looks stark. It looks that it looks like a comic. Also, I mean, yeah, and then just the inside should sort of give you all that information where you'll know if it's fake. If it looks like it was done sloppy, that's it. And then also, I bought this from Midtown Comics, which is a large comic online shop. They have 4 stores in New York City, and I highly doubt that it's fake because I bought it from a reputable dealer as well and a reputable comic shop. And so that's kind of how you tell. But there is issues actually, because even with this, there are people who have figured out how to crack this open and replace books and then get it done, and it looks a certain way. But those people, there are very few people who can do that with this type of book. It is an extremely hard task. I personally don't know anybody who's ever successfully replaced the CGC book in this condition and make it look like it's brand new. I know there are stories of it. I just have never seen it. It is probably a handful of people can do that, and even CGC sometimes they can't figure it out. So it's very hard to fake comics, but people try, and if it doesn't look real, it probably isn't. Also, if you're buying a book and for argument's sake, let's say this was a $300 book on average, and it was selling for $50, that's also a sign that it's a sign of one of two things. It's either the person doesn't know what they have in their hand, or it's a fake. That's the other thing, is that price also dictates certain things
Wow,
with comics.
that is interesting stuff. And like, I guess I kind of wanted to ask is like, how did you kind of like get into the whole comic thing? Like, you were in college studying what, and then what happened?
So
Walk me through it.
I was reading comics, and I was had a small collection. In growing up, I was reading graphic novels. I was a fan of this stuff before I was a seller. And I'm studying political science. I'm enjoying political science. I was going to become a lawyer. That didn't happen.
What happened?
But life has different plans for people, and I'm going to be better than a lawyer. I'm going to be a politician. Just wait, everybody. Just wait. But anyhow, what wound up happening is that I wanted to buy new comics, and then I got into a group with a bunch of guys, and we were all pulling our money together to get a bunch of comics. And everybody obviously keeps their comics, but you trade, and everybody gets to read what everybody else is reading. And I had no money, and then I just went back to my collection and said, okay, what can I get for this? And so I just needed some money because I wanted new comics. And turns out that going through my collection, I just started typing on eBay, and boom, I realized that, oh, this book is actually worth money. And then you repeat it, and then you repeat it. So, I kind of stumbled into it. And then fast forward, all throughout college, I was selling on and off. And then outside of college, when I graduated, I kind of went back to it. I needed some money to start a project of mine, sort of in my junior year, raise some funds with it, and then I went back to it. And I needed more money, and then just been full steam ahead with a large collection. And then from there, I just sort of cracked the code on what to buy and what not to buy. But it's been like a 10-year learning curve in many ways. But sometimes when you just need money, you find things. Yeah, no, it was just one of those things where you need money and then you get money and then you stop. And I was happy because I got what I needed. Then I also had other money coming in from something else to buy my comics. And so I didn't need to sell my collection anymore. And then I needed some money again. And then I went back to it and the money was still there. And I said, wait a second, you sort of have an aha moment saying, wait a second, I have something here that's actually special where these books are worth X, and why are these books worth X? And then you sort of dig in, you get your curiosity going, and then you start cracking the code a little bit, and you say, okay, now I could get this book, and this book, and they're similar to the books that I just sold. So logically, your brain starts saying, I'm going to get this book, this book, and then you get those books, and then you sell, and then those books go up in value. And 4 or 5 times in of doing that, you're like, oh, now I know what to buy, because if I buy this in 3 months, it's going to be worth more. And then you buy a lot more of that, and you keep buying more of that. And if it's kind of like a positive feedback loop, where it's kind of like, I don't know dieting. Okay, if you know that not eating gluten helps you lose weight, you're going to keep doing it until you gain weight from it, and then you're going to find something else to do. But then that's sort of what happened with comics with me, is that I just found books that sell well, and then boom, and then you just keep adding to it and adding to it and adding to it, and that's how you get into it. And now I'm fully indoctrinated into it. And so that's it's just one of those things where, repeat behavior and positive results, you keep going into it until it doesn't happen. And then at some point, and I made shifts along the way. It's not like, the books that I was buying, all of them have hit, and I've made shifts and I've made, calculated decisions going into 2020 and 2021 due to a lot of external factors in the pop culture comic world. And so obviously I've corrected and modified my portfolio a little bit of comics, but yeah, that's kind of how it happened.
Wow. And so where are you located right now? Are you in New York? Where are you located?
I'm in Connecticut, and so I'm in Bethel, Connecticut. So I'm still on the East Coast, but I'm more New England territory.
Right.
If everybody is okay with that, I understand
I'm
that some
actually,
people don't like the Patriots.
oh, that's okay. I really don't even watch the sports, man, but I'm actually from Stamford, Connecticut. So
That's not far. WWE's headquarters is there.
there you go. Yeah.
They got a nice big flag. It's a nice, cool company. You might not like how they fire their employees, but that's a different discussion.
Yeah, I would probably say I lost kind of my Connecticut accent through living all around the United States, but definitely a Connecticut boy. But that's crazy. Yeah. Good to see another Connecticut person. Yeah. So
I didn't grow up in Connecticut. I was born in New York.
that's where you got
Lived
the
in New
extra.
York for
Okay. Go ahead.
lived in New York for a while. Then I moved and lived in DC for 4.5 years. And then I'm now back in Connecticut due to COVID and a variety of other decisions. And I'm in between jobs. And when your parents aren't charging you rent, it's a good reason to come home. It's a good reason because I'm allowed now to invest more of my money while I get resituated and look for a job and figure out everything. But I am generating a lot of money with my comics.
And that's never bad.
And my living with your parents, as much as I don't want to, given the current circumstance in the world, it's not the worst thing.
I mean, right now you're saving money, so I mean, I guess that helps.
I'm saving a lot of money from my DC position, and I mean a lot. I'm probably saving about.
Oh, go ahead. You're saving probably what?
What were you saying?
No. What were you saying? You're saving about what? How much?
I'm probably saving about 20 grand in by living at my parents' house, which is a lot of money right now.
Right. That is a lot of money. 20 grand is a lot of money.
There's nothing wrong with doing that, especially because I'm taking that 20 grand and I'm adding it to my personal wealth, so that and it's being divided up into a lot of things. And I'm not a finance person. I freaking suck at math. I basically had a hard time with math in college. I had a hard time in math in high school. I just know how to sell things, and I know how to run a business, because running a business is not mathematical. It's common sense with logic and understanding what you're doing, and understanding that you have to that this is your break even point and this is your surplus point, and you have to get past your break even point.
But you think that's not
You have to
math?
figure out how.
You have to know math to know what your breaking point is, right?
I don't think it's math though, to the same degree. I think it's just numbers.
Right. It's not
And the
hardcore
reason the
math,
reason
but
why
it's numbers, so.
the reason why I divide that is because it's the same thing with people think that, oh, the treasurer of an organization needs to be mathematical. No, the treasurer needs to have an idea on how to balance a budget. Understanding how to balance a budget in many ways, when you have 10 conflicting things, and it even goes back to business, is that I'm solving problems to get past my break even point. And so I've already run the numbers essentially on how much it costs to do a comic, and I have a checklist, and I've built many checklists, and it's been a modification. This is I have a variety of tools in my repertoire to figure out what I'm buying, what I'm not buying, especially when you're buying like a $600 book. You better damn know what you're doing for sure. When you're spending 600, 700, I've bought comics for $800, $900. And so, you better make sure that you know what those values are, and that's not math. And so now I know what my break even point on this is. I know what it's expected to go up on, and I know what I have to sell it for,
But be,
because I
but
figured it out. And then, yeah,
but being able to calculate that is math, though, right?
I guess to some degree, but it's not super hard math. But
There we go.
also,
There
I
we
figured
go.
out how to sell and how to get it. So in order to get my break even point, I have to figure out how to get it into the right buyer. And to me, that's not math. To get to the break even point, that's the problem. And then I problem solve it, and that's how I make money. I'm not making money by being mathematical. I'm making money by saying, okay, what Facebook group should I throw this book into that's going to attract the right buyer?
Right.
How do I go find the right buyer to get what I need on my calculation point? Because just because I have the break even point, which is 900 times 13%, which is what eBay charges. If I list that book on eBay, or PayPal charges 3%, what break even point do I have to get to? And then, okay, now what group can I put this into? You know, if I want to sell it.
Right.
And that book, I'm not interested in selling, because it's a personal book. It's an awesome book. It's signed by Stan Lee. It's graded. It's connecting covers of Spider-Man and Doc Ock fighting each other, and Spider-Man has Mary Jane in the back. It's an awesome book. It's an awesome book, and it's a personal book, and that's cool too. To have personal books. So it's autographed by Stan Lee. He's no longer with us. In case you missed the memo, it's an awesome book. It's signed by the artist who did it, called J. Scott Campbell, and it's signed by another person who also worked on the book. And so I'm not, and they both are graded as 9.8. So I'm not interested in selling it, because it's just an awesome personal book.
Oh
I'm a
man.
big kid. I'm a
Yeah.
big kid. This business is like a toy for me. And it can do two things for people who want to get into this. If you sell things, it could pay for your hobby, and that's sort of how I started. And then it can also expand your hobby, or it can be an investment tool to generate cash for you for whatever you want to use that for. And it could be a perpetuating fund to some degree as well, where technically speaking, I don't have to add any new money to this at any given time. I could pull out money, I could put more money in, but I mean, it took a while to build this machine. But if I say, hey, I'm not adding any new money into this thing can go for a while without any cash injection, especially with the way I move things. It just won't grow. It'll stay the same. And I'll sell merch, I'll buy merch to replace it, I'll sell that merch, and I'll pull out cash. And it can just be almost like a money tree with minimal effort.
Right. Wow. I could see that happen. Minimal effort. So I mean, like, you know, for you, this is like what your main job is what? What are you doing in your day job? Like what is your main job? Your core job?
I'm right now in between jobs, but my job before this, I was a legislative assistant in DC. So I was doing legislation, dealing with policy, dealing with governmental procedures, and so I was doing a lot of cool stuff in the appropriations committee on Capitol Hill, dealing with legislation and all sorts of stuff like that. So I am a government bureaucrat, for lack of a better word. And so that's my main job. I want to work for the federal government. The pension plan slash 401k plan is massive in the federal government, and it's beautiful. And it will make more people rich and more people millionaires, especially if you get in at a very early age. Even if you get in when you're 30, you're going to be worth a lot of money if you take the federal pension plan and run with it. So that's kind of where I'm at, and that's what I want to do.
Explain to me about that pension plan.
This from my friend right now works for Social Security. He can contribute three up to 3% of his paycheck. He makes about 36 to 38,000, give or take, or around, what he basically said to me is he can contribute $1,800, and because he contributes and he maxes it out at 3%, the federal government matches him. His agency matches him at a 3% match of 1,800, and then the federal government gives him another 1%, which translates to another 300. So for every $1,800 he puts in, the government gives him $2,100 of free cash to his pension plan that then he can invest. And the federal government has a variety of funds that you can invest in, everything from super aggressive to U.S. Treasury bonds as the low risk moderate term. So, and as you get a pay raise, whether that pay raise is every year or every 2 years, you can contribute more and more and more, and the government matches you, and all of a sudden you can max out, and you might max out where the government's giving you 10 grand every year in your last 10 years. They're giving you basically contribute X, they contribute Y, and that equals 10 grand a year or around there, or it might max out sooner than that, but times that over a series of years at an aggressive investing rate with the federal government, which is outlined in one of their plans. Boom, you wind up leaving the federal government with like 750 to $1 million in your 401k.
Oh wow, $1 million at what point in time in life? When you're retired?
Yeah, so when you're like 55, 60, around that, especially if you start young. So if you have 30 years in the federal government, it's not, most people believe between about 750 to a million over 30 years. And then also what happens a lot is that federal government issues buyouts sometimes because it's cheaper. So they will buy out your remaining service essentially, obviously for less than what it would cost you to stay there because you're almost tenured in, but they're going to give you a nice lump sum of money. So they might give you $250,000 and ask you to leave at 57 instead of leaving at 60,
Mm.
especially if you're making like 110,000, or they might ask you to leave at like 56 and give you 200,000, 250,000 as a lump sum to buy your contract out or buy your early retirement, essentially is what it is. It happens all the time in the federal government because they've done the calculations that if you're making 120,000 a year, it's cheaper to give you a lump sum straight up than it is to do something. And then sometimes these people go to private practice. Sometimes these people say, hey, you know what it is? I can, and also, I don't think you have to technically cash out your 401k plan until a certain age anyway. So what some people do is that if they have 3 years left, they purposely plan for it, and then well, they have their expenses covered for a certain amount of time, and then they could take their 401k plan following that, but they let it grow. So it's crazy.
Wow. I
There's a
mean,
lot of cool stuff that goes on, and I'm gonna just say this: my entire finance background didn't come out of college. It didn't come out of somebody teaching this. I didn't have a financial advisor. I legitimately just spoke to a lot of people on this, and I read a lot about it. And I'm self-taught on this, and I watched a lot of YouTube to figure out all my finances. And I'm a traditional investor as well. I love mutual funds. I love index funds. I love single stocks. I'm not an ETF guy. It's just not for me. Um, and I know very little about cryptocurrency. I get that it's here to stay. It's just not my cup of tea.
right. Yeah. Not
So,
into the
but
cryptocurrency.
my financial education has nothing to, it's all from YouTube. It's all from listening to people. I've read some financial books. I read Kevin O'Leary's Men, Women, and Money. That's a big influence on me. I've obviously listened to Dave Ramsey. I don't like debt. I really don't like debt. I don't like anything that gets in the way of me building wealth. And so that's just kind of my entire financial background.
Right. So how's that working out for you right now with the whole debt thing, not
I'm
building
doing
debt?
good.
Okay.
I'm doing good. I felt really good when I paid off my college debt like 3 years ago. So it was a very good feeling. Having no debt, um, not having to worry that I owe anybody anything. Except there's a few, I guess, exceptions. If you own a house, not everybody, most people in America can't go and drop $650,000 on a house. I don't think most people have $650,000, but that's a little bit different because that's sort of good debt. But most debt is bad. I think people agree that credit card debt is not good. I think people agree that if you have student loan debt, it's not good. There's nothing good about that, but if you are paying down a house, that's good debt. That's a good debt to have because you're paying down ownership of something that you're utilizing. That's sort of the exception, I think, in my world, and that's sort of the covenant. I think that's going to be broken as far as debt. But beyond me having no debt, it actually forces me to make better decisions because I say, okay, if I don't have the money to do something, I can't do it. I haven't gone on vacation in 6 years because I can't afford it. And I'm cool with that. I personally have taken time off and I've relaxed and sat in my house and read a book and enjoyed myself and not woke up and slept in. But I haven't gone on vacation because I don't want to go put it on a charge card or a debit card and then have that thing bite me in the ass later. And so I know people who have done that and then they pay it off over time. Rather, what I've done is that I've disciplined myself and I've built a nice portfolio in the stock market. I mean, I have a good chunk of change in single stocks. I fully funded my Roth IRA 2 years ago. I funded partially it last year as well, and I've grown that. And so I've made a lot of decisions because I have responsibility before I can go on a vacation, and I'm not going into debt to have an experience to go somewhere that because I would rather go somewhere in the next 3 years when I could go first class.
Right, right. Yeah, totally makes sense. I mean, I'd probably do the same thing. First class. So basically, you're saving the best for last.
Yeah, I'm saving the best for my wife. When my future wife, she's gonna get the best. That's really what this is about, and and my kids are gonna be taken care of when I have kids. Because that's what I'm doing right now. A lot of what I'm doing is for the future of me. It's for the future of my wife. It's going to be the future of my kids, and that's kind of how I am. And it's also for me because I want to have nice things. I don't need to drive a nice car right now. There's no good reason for me as a 28-year-old to have a Porsche. There's no good reason for me to have a Porsche. When I'm 45, I want 3 Porsches. And the way you get 3 Porsches when you're 45 is by making good decisions when you're 28.
Right, right, right. Totally. I could agree with that. Yeah, those are.
And so, because right, I don't know how old you are, but no 28-year-old needs a Porsche. Now, I get it if you're, Justin Bieber. I hate to single out him. I kind of like him right now. Guy's got millions upon millions of dollars. If he wants a Porsche, it's a little bit different, but the average American does not need a Porsche when they're 28. Plus, do you really want to be the guy who's 28 driving a Porsche? You're probably not going to appreciate it.
Yeah, I could see that. I could see that happen. I could see you not appreciating a Porsche at that age, but I could see you having a lot of fun too.
That is true. That is true. But then again, you're probably also a really bad driver because you don't really become good at driving until you're like 40 anyway. And so, do you really want to drive out a Porsche and then bang it up and get it all whatever? You're not going to respect the car. It's gonna end badly. You're gonna waste a beautiful car when you're 28. When you're 45 in a Porsche, you're not gonna waste it, and you're gonna enjoy every second of it. And also, you're gonna be the cool dad picking up your kid in it and your kid's gonna love you even more. Is if you're not gonna take your kid to ice cream in it.
Oh man, that's hilarious, Andrew. So wait, so for you, you're saving the best for last. You plan on, showing up with the three Porsches, when you decide on having these children and this family and stuff like that. I like how you kind of thought about your priorities ahead of time and saving your money. I think your future wife is going to be exactly happy, because you've been, saving your money for a rainy day, and yeah, it sounds pretty awesome.
Yeah, no, it's going to be great, and you know what it is though. It's the saying goes is that everybody has problems in life, no question. No matter who you are, you have problems. Most marriages fail not because a partner's cheating, not because people aren't compatible, but because of money issues. Money trumps every problem in a marriage. Because if every marriage has problems, no question about it. Doesn't matter how good you are, there's always problems in marriages. What makes every problem worse and what is an impetus for a divorce in this country is money over everything else. So if all of a sudden you don't have monetary problems, every other problem you have is lessened because money is only I guess, an irritant to your other problems. Now, I understand that if your wife or your husband's cheating on you, it's very upsetting, and I'm not diminishing that. But if all of a sudden, it is, I'll give you another problem. Let's say that you get cancer, and it's a treatable cancer, but you don't have a money problem and you have your insurance covered, then that problem isn't as bad. But if all of a sudden you have no money, you're broke, and you're uninsured and you have cancer, that's a massive problem. And I use that example because I think everybody who's listening to this can completely understand that. Or I'll give another example that might hit even harder. All of a sudden your kid, breaks his arm, falls off, your kid breaks his arm and he needs a life-saving surgery. He has a heart issue and he needs a life-saving surgery. If you have money, that problem is massively lessened. If you have no money, that problem is massively inflated and is much, much harder to deal with. And so that's something that is what I'm trying to figure out. And even if you're not married and you have a problem, but you have money, if you have $100,000 in cash in your bank account, every problem is lessened because money can help solve those problems or at least deal with part of it or at least give you some room to wiggle. I've been in situations where, I've had like an extra $4,000 in my bank account and I was able to wiggle. You get into a car accident, and you have some money, in your bank account that's going to cover your injuries, and the insurance company's busting your balls, you can survive. If you have no money and the insurance company's busting your balls, you might have to work through your pain and might not be able to take care of yourself or might not be able to buy the right things to help you heal for that extra week that's going to then make sure your body heals in the right position. But if you have no money, you might not be able to afford what you need to help you that's going to benefit you and protect your bone that just got crushed. So that's my position. That's why I'm doing what I'm doing, because it works, and that's why being debt free is important and generating cash, and I love it.
Well said. Well said. I totally agree. I think like money is very important. It's imperative to life. I think it does. It lessens the pain, right, in life. I mean, life can be amazing and it can be wonderful, and you don't need money to be happy, but it sure makes you happier.
Oh, I've been rich and I've been poor. Money is a lot better, and money doesn't make you happy. No question about that. Money is not happiness, but I can tell you that if you're going to be miserable, having money and being miserable is a lot better than being poor and miserable.
These are
And
the facts.
also, and also the thing is that you might be miserable with money, but you can drive a Porsche and be miserable with money. You can't drive a Porsche and be poor. So that's all I'm going to say. I didn't say broke, because being broke and being poor are very different. They are two different things. Right now, I have very little cash at my disposal. I have assets that are worth cash. I have significant stocks that tomorrow I can cash out. Actually, it's Sunday tomorrow. On Monday, I could cash them out. But I don't have a lot of money necessarily in my bank account. I have money in mutual funds. I have money in stocks. but I have money very readily accessible that I can within a week get me a good chunk of change if I had a massive emergency that was a $10,000 emergency. I can easily take care of that if necessary. But I'm broke. I'm not poor. There's a massive difference between the two.
Right, right, totally. No, I get it. I agree with you 100%. There's definitely a different level to being broke and poor and things like that. So what like where did you get this ambition from? Like, what kind of careers does your parents do? Do your parents do similar stuff? Like, who inspired you to do what you do?
My dad is a lawyer. He is a trial lawyer, and he's a sole practitioner. So he doesn't work for a firm. He works for himself, and he's an investor. And I kind of just got into it and got excited about it. He got me started in a bond fund, with money that I inherited from my grandma. And that thing doesn't do very well. I mean, it produces a small dividend, every month. And I just consistently added money to it. And that thing is growing, and it's very bonds are for those who are unfamiliar. A bond will not skyrocket up. It just won't. But it will stay stable, and it will pay almost a dividend or a coupon, and it's almost like a bond mutual fund type thing. So it's very effective. And then following that, I just got into stocks because he's into stocks and he's into mutual funds. And then I sort of just copied him. And it's weird because my sister grew up obviously in the same house, and she knows nothing about this, and she just doesn't take to it, and I just take to it, and then it's so weird. Like I might sound I'm about to say something that might sound sexist, and I know some of it's true, but like I don't like my mom isn't into this, my sister's not into any of this. I love it. I love it more than my dad. Obviously he's done very well, and I copy his portfolio and elements of his portfolio and certain things that he's gotten me in. And I mean, this year, in the last 14 months in my Roth, I mean, I'm killing it right now in certain mutual funds. My only problem is that I wish I bought more. I wish I bought more because I would do even better. Um, but yeah, no, and I'm about to say something where like I don't know many women who love investing and want to talk about investing, and it's kind of crazy. And I know it might like I don't think investing is a guy thing, but I think guys talk about it a lot more
But
than women do.
maybe guys do that because, for example, like what you kind of said some stuff. You said like, hey, look, I'm saving up all my money and my investments for my family and my future, and I think maybe there's this like nurturing thing where you feel like you have to be the breadwinner, and so you have to bring the bacon home to the wife, and maybe some women feel like they don't have to be that provider, and so therefore they're not interested.
Yeah, I don't know. It's weird. And look, Kathy Woods, obviously, Kathy Woods is killing it. She's in the top 10 investors of all time at the moment, and she's on that list. I still think Warren Buffett's above her for everything that Warren Buffett has done. And obviously, but I don't know any other prominent female investor. And ARK is a very cool company and a very cool thing that they do with their ETFs and everything. And she's great at what she does. I disagree with her ARC-X, that space thing, as it seems like a really stupid ETF. And it also like some of those holdings are just ridiculous in there. Why is Netflix in a space ETF? I don't get it. I think her innovative ETF is great, and those companies are smart. Um, Space ARC-X is a ridiculous. But my point is that even going further off of that, I mean, I don't even want my kids to be even touching that fund. I want to have it so that they inherit it and inherit all that money when I die. That's what I really want. So I want my children, and I want to pass on a lot of wealth to my kids. So I don't really know why like women don't talk about this, and it's so bewildering to me because I think this would be an empowerment thing for women to say, yeah, I'm hungry. I want to make money too, because I don't think money cares who's making it. It's anybody can make money. Like what I do in the comics, whether I do it in stocks or real estate, you know, I think anybody can do it. It's not a sex thing, and I just don't get it. I think it's kind of crazy, and I think it's a real lack in this entire female empowerment movement that's currently going on. Is this is where it should be starting? It shouldn't be starting on other things. This is where it should be starting. because money is power. No question about it.
Right. No, I totally agree with you. But like I said, it may be just those variances of being a male versus a female sometimes. But I know women that actually invest out here too as well a lot. But I mean, because I live in Silicon Valley now, so
Oh,
yeah.
maybe you know what it is? Maybe it's just that it never comes up with my conversations with women because we're talking about other things. And maybe this is just like me and my friends are just super fascinated about it. It's like me and a friend of mine, like all we do is just talk about it. He's trying to convince me to buy Tesla, and I'm trying to convince him to buy AT&T. You know, it's a debate that we have every single time we see each other, and we're having this discussion about which is better over long term, and it's a super fun debate. And then he's trying to convince me, I'm trying to convince him. And when I'm hanging out with a girl or going out on a date or we're getting close, I never bring this up because it's kind of also talking about money with women is complicated, especially when they're not your fiance or they're not your wife. It's a little weird because it could come off one or two ways. And so that's the other thing too, is that sometimes that conversation can just go just eerie. Maybe a lot of women are into it. I just don't. The conversation just doesn't happen because it's like an awkward guy girl conversation.
Yeah, I
Sometimes
think maybe
could
it's
be
like
that too.
I think it's also like what type of profession you're in and stuff like that, and things like that in areas. I mean, I think like places over here like Silicon Valley, we're known to be investing in startups, so there's a lot more women that are obviously interested in because they live here. So due to proximity, that is a thing that you typically will find or you will discover. But it's not. I haven't seen it like a standard conversation that most females that I've engaged typically have. But I have had conversations with many women about them here. So it does happen,
Yeah,
but
I mean,
it's just different.
yeah, no, I'm just going off my personal, thing where like I can't speak to my sister about this
Yeah,
because
yeah,
like
yeah.
she's just not excited about it, and like I love it. I look at my portfolio like every day. I'm like looking at different things. I have L brands and that entire thing with Victoria's Secret being spun off or going back into private equity, and that discussion happening, and now being for like $4 to $5 billion. Like that's super exciting owning that company. I'm like, oh snap. Like, how is this going to affect me? And that's going to shoot the freaking thing up money.
Right.
It's awesome what they're doing. And I'm like, this is exciting because, like, I'm a part owner. I'm a part owner of a company. Even if I have one share, I own a part of that company.
But Andrew, quick
Like,
question.
this is how I view it.
And quick question, right? So it's like, I get your point, right? But like, think of things like this way. If you're the head of the household, or excuse me, you don't have to be whoever it is. You have a family, and you've saved up all your money, and when shit goes south, who's to blame?
What do you mean when shit goes south? Like divorce or argument or difference on
Money,
how we should raise our kids,
money,
schooling?
money.
There's three arguments, and I'm gonna outline them and correct me or stop me at any point. So it could be both parties' fault because, and I'll give a scenario.
No, no, no.
And
But I think more clearly, like, I understand it could be both parties' fault, but who's gonna be the blame?
typically it's usually the guy who gets blamed. I feel,
There we go.
but yeah, exactly. But it's sometimes different. If your wife gets completely drunk and then crashes into a car, and then you have to pay $30,000 in damage or restitution, there's no way in hell it could be the husband's fault in
Okay.
that circumstance.
In that circumstance.
That's
But I'm saying
that's a black and white
right,
situation.
But in normal situations, when finances go south, who's looked at upon as the who's it? It's a you problem. It's not typically a her problem. It's you.
95% of the
There
time.
we go.
If the man is the breadwinner, it's the guy. If the man is not the breadwinner,
He's
then
probably
it gets a little bit
yeah.
hairier.
And if the guy's not a breadwinner, then probably the relationship might be really rocky, anyways. I haven't seen too many men being the non-breadwinners, and the relationship is just so perky and awesome.
Oh man, I have some friends and he loves it because he's a comic writer and he owns like a small comic studio and maybe they do like $100,000 a year and his wife has a birthday present basically funded it and she's a doctor and she's making like 800,000 a year and it's awesome. He loves his life. He gets to write comic books and the company is self sufficient. And like she's like basically paying for everything and their relationship. They got 3 kids and it's like he says like his life is perfect and it's awesome. And so like, and I sit there and I said, you married the right woman. And he's like, yeah, I know. And I'm like, yeah, and it's great because he's living what he wants. He gets to hang out with his kids, and it's awesome from what he tells me. And like I see photos, I'm friends with him on Facebook, but that's the rare case. That's the rare
That is a
case.
rare case, and I would also challenge what's going on in there. Like, I mean, I know it seems like it's flake. I mean, it's awesome and fun, but like, where's the dynamics? Like, is she a 10? You know, is he like a, you know, a 10, or is she like, you know, 5 or 6? Like,
It's
what?
like a 6.
Right,
He's a 6.
right,
And which means he has something about him.
right.
There's only a
It's gotta
few
have something
things.
amazing. Were they childhood friends? Like, what was the dynamics between these two people? How did they meet? Like this is interesting.
I didn't go that far,
See?
but I'm not sure exactly the dynamics, but
You
I
don't
think
see
he
that
has
too
something
often.
special
Something's up
down
in that
south.
kitchen. Something's up that, yeah, must be done something down south. He's making up for somewhere. There's got to be proportion making up for the lack of income there. Typically,
Let's just say his hot dog is magical,
well, he better be hot dogging magical. He better be a freaking exercise wiener going in there, bro.
or she has
Keep
Stockholm
her.
Syndrome. One or the other. One or
It's
the
one of
other.
those. It's one of those. Or she's got, or she lets him go play with his comic books while she has other things on the side.
Yeah.
Don't tell him I said
I'm
that.
just I'm. No. They seem happy. I've had a conversation with both of them, and they seem absolutely happy, and it's awesome. And like,
I mean, I'd be happy too if I marry somebody and all they're doing is reading fucking comic books while I'm going to do what I
No,
want to do.
he's running his company. He's getting to do what he wants to do, and it pays for things. And I have a feeling that what might have happened is that I think that the story is that while she was still in medical school, he was supporting and helping to cover her medical
Ah,
stuff, and that's kind of the thing. You know, there's Scott Snyder. You're
right.
a comic book guy, right? You know, Scott Snyder's wife is a doctor.
So basically, what it is
So
she kind of invested, and he kind of invested possibly in her earlier career. So now she's kind of like paying homage to him.
So Scott writes Batman, and I have a feeling his wife makes more money than he does, because technically speaking, a doctor makes more money. A doctor is at the high end. Now, if you're a good comic writer, you can make a lot of money in a lot of different ways. You know, you could have movie rights, and you could have things, and you get royalties for the rest of your life on certain things. It's awesome if you hit the lottery. Robert Kirkman is a good example of that. But one of the things that I think is, but statistically, if you're writing comics and your wife's a doctor, there you go. But Scott, I know, paid and really supported his wife and helped to pay all of her medical stuff and was supporting and invested in her throughout her entire thing. And so there you go. And also, my understanding is that when Scott was writing Batman and all that stuff, he paid for the house, he paid for a lot of that stuff, and all that stuff was sort of done because his wife is now starting to make money when she's like 34. So obviously, it goes a little bit more where when somebody's making more money than you, but if somebody got you there, so if I met a girl and she was finishing up her residency in the next 3 years, and I was the breadwinner for those 3 years working my ass off, and then she's making 400,000 and I'm making 120,000, well, there you go.
Yeah, man.
If I
I
invested
can
in
see
her,
that. I can
like,
see
that's
that. You know,
kind of,
having faith in a guy who had, help somebody stay afloat. But at the same time, I just wonder how long that can last. But then at the same time, they both make decent amount of money. To where it's like, is money even an option to argue about? I mean, they have so much money between each other. Like, what's the problem?
yeah. And also, don't you want to date and marry the guy who's writing Batman and has redefined Batman? Because look, let's be realistic. How many people can really do the Court of the Owl story? I don't know. It's a pretty big win for Scott. It's one of those things where it's like, sure, because let's be realistic. Scott can go find another doctor to marry. She can't go find another Batman writer.
Is that the truth? Is that hard to find somebody to replace Scott? Somebody to read comics? So, like, what does that even look like? So, what type of girls are dating guys who, typically read comics?
Oh, I have no idea because I've been out of the dating market for a long time, and COVID hasn't done anything. I had a bad 7 hour date virtual. It was not good. It was not good. After 7 hours, she said we're not compatible. So I'm not ready to go back in the fire just yet. I'm still raw from it, from like 5 months ago. I'm still raw from it.
Oh, Andrew, you're hilarious, man. Well, hey, man, I think we're about close to our time. It's been great sitting there talking to you. Is there anything you want to say to the audience out there?
Yeah, go check me out on Facebook. I'm not this funny usually. You could go bother me on Facebook. Pop Anime Comics. Anything with Pop Anime Comics is typically mine. Whether it's my website, my Twitter handle, my Facebook page. I do a lot of live interviews. I do about 4 or 5 a week now. Talking to comic creators and cosplayers and voice actors and professional wrestlers. And then also, if you're interested in learning how to do comic book investing, I run a free show called the Comic Book Investing System Podcast. It's on Facebook. It's only on Facebook. Some episodes do migrate to Anchor. And I just talk about comic stuff on a variety of different things. It's a free show. You can like the page. You can check it out. And it's pretty cool. It's a lot of fun. So, yeah, if you want to know more about comic book investing, that's where you go. Obviously, Pop Anime Comics, whether Facebook, website, Twitter. Follow me on Instagram. And also, you could ask me questions on any of those sites. Because if you have questions about comics or you want to run anything by me or you want to bother me, because I'm totally cool to be bothered in any which way. I get lonely at night. So there you go.
There you go, man. You definitely get lonely at night, man, reading those comic books. I don't see too many women coming over for those. I appreciate it, man. But it's definitely been great. So just hang on for a second. We're gonna make sure everything uploads and everything like that. And it's been great having you here, man. Yes.
Ladies and gentlemen, the Kids in the Room podcast. Kids in the Room podcast.
That's right. That's right.
Brought to you by Moo Faces TV. Let's go.